everybody have their lunch? I'm going to go ahead and get started. This session goes to 1, so feel free if you want to get dessert, to grab dessert, but this is a lunch and learn session. My name is Doris Wong, and I'm from Smart ERP Solutions. We're based out in California, and I'm going to talk today about a lot of what we do with clients around automation, getting rid of paper, all of that fun stuff, as I still find organizations are still somewhat manual, paper-based, and still struggling with some of the challenges. So we'll talk about that a little bit and see what we've done with our clients. Okay, so here's our agenda that I want to do. Talk a little bit about Smart ERP. I'm going to focus our discussion around business processes because really at the end of the day it's about business processes. That the question is everything within it automated? Is it manual? You know your business process. So we'll talk about that a little. And then we'll take a look at some use cases around what we see are some of the common things out there around still manual processes, paper-based processes, keys to success summary, and Q&A. So feel free to ask questions along the way. Let me, before we get started, just find out who's in my audience. Is everyone here PeopleSoft?
There we go. Enjoy.
Anyone not PeopleSoft? It's almost too funny because I actually have the presentation of PeopleSoft and I didn't notice it said PeopleSoft, so I changed it to be more generic. So at the end of the day, if you're PeopleSoft, we're good. So, but it also for e-business suite, etc. too. So I have no e-business suite in my audience. That's good to know. Any HCM cloud? Okay.
We're not core system. PeopleSoft is our core
Still
system.
people. What are you using in cloud?
Talent, performance goals, and workforce compensation.
Okay, awesome.
And people can see the profile, but it is the pared down.
So you have that integrated back with your PeopleSoft. Okay, another cloud back there? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, he's eating too. How? Not fair that I was doing a little Q&A.
We're to like our recruiting and performance.
Okay, okay. Do you use PeopleSoft?
We do.
Okay, so use PeopleSoft for everything else. You're not using Candidate Gateway, Taleo for the recruiting part, also for the performance part. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Anybody else in here? Yes. Taleo for the recruiting. Okay. What are you using for onboarding? Talent-wise, a different solution. PeopleSoft is your core? What did you say? Okay. Anyone else?
We use SuccessFactors for validity.
Okay. Seeing more and more that best of breed strategy out there, right?
Yeah, I think they want to have a core in HR, people HR, surrounded with the cloud products.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is going to be my agenda. So let me just talk a little bit about us at Smart ERP. As I mentioned, I have over 20 years working with PeopleSoft. I used to run PeopleSoft inside of Oracle, especially after the Oracle acquisition. So all of you with your cloud strategies, your core PeopleSoft, best of breed, not best of breed, fully integrated, Fusion or not Fusion, now HCM Cloud, believe me, I've been with you on this journey since 2006-7 after that Oracle acquisition. But I am at Smart ERP Solutions today. We're made up of all former PeopleSoft folks, and really, we do your traditional consulting, but we also focus a lot on add-on solutions to surround what you may be doing today to try to help automate, optimize those business processes. So if you take a look, like the reason I asked about onboarding is because one of the things that we have really done is connected onboarding directly to PeopleSoft. So if it's core there, you might be using Taleo for your recruiting, Connecta, SuccessFactors, whatever, but we do your onboarding directly inside of PeopleSoft. So those are our innovative solutions. The interesting thing is of all of the move to the cloud, we have an on-premise if you want to be on-premise, or if you want to be cloud, you can be cloud-based. So we support both. And I want to remind, I guess my marketing guys outside said, to remind you guys, visit us at 417, and they want to make sure that if you come by, you'll get registered for a Win GoPro. And bet you that's what's going on back there. And I hate being recorded, so don't record me, but, yes. So Kirk, I'm doing marketing for you guys, because you said stop by and everybody will get registered there.
Sure.
Or probably the leads that you guys are scanning, will that work, or they have to stop by the booth?
You just hand out the cameras here and we remember.
Everybody's a winner.
That's right.
Anyways, I'm putting in a pitch for all of you guys, okay? All right, so that's about us, both services, your traditional services, as well as cloud, and on top there, PeopleSoft, that's our core. However, we do integrate with the Business Suite and beginning to work with cloud customers as we're beginning to see in this room here, there's more cloud customers. Interesting, it is really still that best of breed strategy. So. Okay, so I'm going to dive in and talk about business process automation and what we're seeing out there in terms of trends. So just very quickly, I just always like to set the stage because everybody has a lot of terms around automation. So, you know, people still have paper today. How many of you still have paper in your organization? You still have paper in your organization. So paperless, you know. That storage, get rid of it, move it online. So that's one of the key things that we work a lot with our clients. If you have paper, it probably doesn't matter what that paper is because there's probably an option for getting rid of it. And we do work with clients. I've got one of my clients in this room here sitting there, and I won't embarrass her while she's eating, but she actually made her paper base and has moved off of paper bases in regards to their onboarding. So there's paper base, and then there's the word electronic. So those two go hand in hand together because, again, electronic, paperless kind of goes hand in hand in the sense that you want to get rid of that paper. So we want to see that moving forward. And then the next key word that I like to use is automation. So all three of these words, I think, you know, really at the end of the day implies getting rid of the paper, getting rid of your manual paper, bring it online, be automated. So that's really where we want to go. And then the last term I want to use here is what I call business process automation, because it's not just about one piece of paper or one part of the process, because even in a recruit to hire or even a termination process or a job requisition that turns into, you know, a whole talent acquisition process, there's multiple components, multiple steps. Some organizations, multiple paper forms in the process to just get a hire going in the system. So the question is not just look at that one piece of paper, but look at your whole process, and is there an opportunity to automate your whole process, whether you are on-premise with PeopleSoft, with some cloud extensions, whether it's HCM Cloud, Taleo, etc. We'll take a look at some of those and talk about that. So individual components as well as business process automation. So on the HCM side, this is our PeopleSoft world. You know, we all know, I put HCM up there big because this is an HCM conference, but the PeopleSoft stack is made up of different PeopleSoft applications, all using people tools. I didn't know in my room if I was going to have any e-business suite, because sometimes we say PeopleSoft and e-business suite folks show up. But you know, today you are implemented. In my audience here, anybody, all HR PeopleSoft. So I have the cloud. Let me see where, okay. So, and then everybody else has an extension of cloud. So HCM core up there. And then for the e-business suite, they don't have multiple databases. We don't have anyone in here, but they're all in one database. So that always drives certain automation requirements as well. But I'm going to skip e-business suite moving forward. And then, of course, there's the cloud. So for those of you that are PeopleSoft and cloud, you know, it's probably some integration that's going on between your cloud talent, whether it's Taleo, and your core PeopleSoft, or whether it's performance, or whether it's any of the other applications that are out there. At the end of the day, all of you guys have these complicated business process flows. Do you have these in your organization? When you look at it, do you get dizzy and go, gosh, what is all of this? Do I understand it? But you know, some of you may have it all within one system. Some may have third-party systems or your cloud applications all integrated. But at the end of the day, these are your business process flows, whether it's a recruit to hire, whether it is one of your other business processes or not. But all of them, whether it's e-business suite, PeopleSoft, everybody ends up defining their processes. So you define your process, you implement your solution today, and then the question is, do you consider yourself fully automated? Just because you're on a system. And the answer most of the time is no. Because for some reason in that business process, just implementing a system does not necessarily automate everything that's within your business process, and we see that out there. Even with those that are in the cloud and with the core PeopleSoft, there's still paper in the process. And we have to question when we go out and work with our clients, why are you filling in your job requisition on a paper form and routing it for approval before you start the recruiting process? And that happens. You know, so is there more to optimize and to automate out there? And the answer that we're finding is it doesn't matter what HCM software you're on, there is additional room for automation. So I call it continuous business process optimization and automation, because you can start with whether it's your recruiting process, your performance process, but if you go back and look at every part of your business process and say, is there any part of this that's manual? Is it all automated? Is it paper? You would go through that analysis, and then really the objective is to continue to drive that optimization and automation in your business process, because these are the business values that you should be able to achieve as you continue to drive more and more automation in your business process. So number one, definitely getting rid of operating costs. We definitely see an increase in productivity. If you are manually, and I love the story where, you know, they're doing approvals and they're saying they're running it across campus, let's say in higher ed, they're running it across campus, interoffice mail to get that. How long do you think that paper is going to come back? And who has visibility into that piece of paper while it's going across the campus? And if it's on my desk, it'll get buried and I'll spill coffee on it, you know. So anyways, increased productivity, getting it in the system with secure data as well as validated data is very key too, because even on paper, you could write the wrong information and get bad handwriting, and it could go in incorrectly. Everything should drive reduced admin time and manual processes. As a result, you should be driving better service levels. You're more automated, more efficient. Your compliance can be automated as well too. You can ensure your compliance is adhered to, especially if you have a lot of compliance requirement. How many of you have, on an annual basis, got to have another policy renewed, read again, or every 2 years, have that same policy reviewed by your employees again and signed again? So if you have that, if that's a manual process today, because you need all your employees, 5,000, 25,000 to do it, wouldn't it be awesome if you could automate that and send it out and get it all back electronically? And of course, we all want to be environmentally sound. So I'm going to go through a couple use cases here. These are the common 2 scenarios that we see out there, where they could be on PeopleSoft, they could be on your business suite, they could be in the cloud, they could be integrated, not integrated. I see Tim. Hi, Tim. How are you? Another one of my clients has automated, so this is going to be old news for you. So first scenario I want to talk about is, this is probably the most common one, and I have 2 that's here. So this is your typical manual business process where you're completing the paperwork. Now that paperwork could be a paper or it could be an external system. Because some people say, I'm not filling it on paper, I'm doing it in Lotus Notes, or I'm doing it on an Excel spreadsheet. Well, it's still outside of the system, okay? So complete that paperwork, however you do it, if it's outside of your core system. And then they route it. I talked about this routing. They route it through interoffice routing, or however you need to get it. Some people use email, whatever that process, and send it off to the first approver to approve it. That first approver needs more information, so they send it back, and it comes back to get more paperwork, right? So just think about this manual process. So then we get that first approval, but you gotta send it back through that manual process, email, interoffice mail, US mail, whatever it may be. but you get that first approval. But we know everything usually requires more than one approval. So there we go again for getting another one. The first approval says the paperwork is missing, so it sends it back again. And then you gotta track down that missing paperwork, right? And then that paperwork is found in all those folders, route it through again, and you then get that approval. Let me see what else comes back. And then you try to go get your second approval. So if this was a paper manual process today, this is pretty much what goes on in this scenario. A lot of manual tracking, manual forwarding of information, approval processes taking time. How long does this, on average, you think takes in within an organization? Get any form. Could be a comp approval, could be a job approval. What do you guys think? A week.
Too long.
Too long, okay. There you go, right? And so that's what we're really trying to help organizations. And we do see people do this. They'll do a little bit of it maybe, but they still have a lot of manual processes within the organization. So that's where we look for those opportunities to get rid of it. Oh, I had one more. Complete data entry, typing it off of paper into the system, right? So this is really that manual process. Okay, so let's say if we were to automate that, what would that scenario look like for that same one? So the goal would be to complete whatever that request within the system. And ideally, within your system of record, if it can be done. Because when you're doing it outside, you gotta figure out how do you validate that information? How do you make sure you have real-time information? And remember that data security, data accuracy? Well, if you hire Doors and Doors isn't in the system and you went to try to put me in and I don't show up yet, or maybe I am in there, how do you make sure that Doors is really valid and got my social and my address and all of that? So the first requirement is typically to complete that request, ideally in your core system of record, okay? Within that core system of record, we want to immediately route it for workflow approval. No inter-office, no trucking it across, no sending it via email and getting lost in my inbox. We want that to be automatically routed for workflow approval, following your business rules, which you can also automate. Okay, so we want to do that. So that first approver looks at it, may not have all of their information, request that back. I would say you could send that out, go over there. If they're sitting at their desk, they could get back to you, and that could be in your inbox to go ahead and amend your data. Put the wrong information in, you're still sitting at your desk, that could probably be within 5 minutes, okay? If everyone's there. Then we go back for that first approval because you have that information, and there you go, you got that first approval. And then go on with your second approval because you have everything there. And what happens is you could go ahead and route that for your third approval, and all of those boxes that were there before are all opportunities for you to take that time and that resource to go do other higher value added activities within your organization. That's where your admin time, your efficiency, your costs, and all of that goes down. So if you said, well, what can I do with that time? You could use your time to coach employees, go on a vacation, because that saying these days, everybody have too much to do and not enough resources. Every one of my clients tell me that. De-stress, meditate, or take your data and go analyze it. So you could take that efficiency, that manual process, gain more efficiency from this, and be able to move that to go do higher value added stuff. Now, one of the things on the amend data in my manual one, it has request more information a couple of times. So you could either get it all right, but if you needed to go find paper, you could also attach documents as well and route it all electronically. So nobody needs to pass paper. In this world here, you could be totally electronic, including your workflow approval, time-stamped everything in terms of your audit trail. And if your auditors come in, you go in the system and pull that all up, okay? Now, we've seen this in HR personnel, we've seen these on job requisition, request to fill, you name it, compensation approvals, we've seen all different ones where people are still using paper forms and doing this manually. So the concept is very simple, this. Whether you are PeopleSoft, whether you're e-business suite, or wherever you are, bring all of those sources online. Okay, we talked about that route with electronic workflow. And as a result, that last approver in the process, usually when they press approve, the system has the ability to automatically do that update for you as well. So remember that data entry, the manual data entry, you don't even have to type it. You just approve it if you're HR at the end of that process, and let the system update that directly into your PeopleSoft, your e-business suite, et cetera. And as a result, you have your electronic record retention and audit trail. This becomes no need to run to a file cabinet, no need to look up in the paper process email what time Doris approved and how long did she take. Also, you can run metrics on that to find out who's always holding up your approval process. Doris, 15 days in her computer, you can start to chase me down, right? So you could also drive better business practices by having that level of audit trail in your system. Okay, so that's the big common one for a lot of external systems, paper. You know, I have people going, can you do this form? Can you do this form? And at the end of the day, it's all about the fact that you still have paper, you're still manual. How do we bring that online? Now, I'm going to go through another use case because this is a big one where we see, you know, lots of paper in the process. It's all around recruiting. Some of you guys have Taleo in here. How many of you are using an onboarding solution today already? Automated your onboarding. Okay, we have 2 or 3. Oh, well, you two have implemented my solution. Okay, so one of the things we'll talk about is what is it that's going on here that people are still manual based, and we'll talk about that here. So again, you take the same concept and you can apply it to just onboarding. But one of the interesting is that you could take this concept and also, and even though I'm not going to talk about it too much in my example, you could take it and also offboard your employees as well too. Because if you can onboard, I bet you have paper processes and manual processes around offboarding your employees as well. So the concept of bringing them on and off can be done with the exact same solution. It's all about what is that process, and that's why I said at the end of the day, everything about automation and being more efficient is to understand your business process, where's there opportunity to do that, and then work on automating. So we can stay, all of this is the same, except for you can increase your employees' engagement, you can drive performance there, change a few things out, but that's there as well. So let's take a look at what this looks like in organization. So for those of you that don't have an onboarding, you know, this here is a real use case. Thank goodness the client is not in this room. So this is not yours and it's not yours, okay? But this is a real scenario of what they're doing today. And so they have in here, the branch manager makes a call, this is the recruiting process, and they go through their filling in paperwork for that request. I'm over here for the employee forms, and then they use PDF and email, and then they create real manual folders. Let me get rid of this phone. It's not letting me move here. And then HR reviews it. This is all their manual process. And then they do scanning, and then they create a paper file. Basically, it's laborious. So let's take a look what they have in their process. There's paper, they're processing paper, they're filling in a paper form. They're reviewing and scanning paper in their process, right? All outside of the system. The paper, again, they're putting in file folders, and they're actually routing file folders for each employee. Their corporate HR goes in and does some data entry, but they do that manually. The corporate payroll scans that paperwork into image now, so they're scanning that. And then there's more paper because now they're going to need to payroll, create a paper file. And then they key some more stuff into the system. And then there's more paper in that corporate HR process for payroll. They got to fill in their I-9 and it's paper, and they scan it, it's paper. You guys get the story, right? So with this diagram here, When we moved them to automating, and again, went through their business process to look at where are their manual steps, where are their paper steps, where are the opportunities to reduce that paper, bring it online using the same concept. Not everything may need workflow approval. It may just be to get that I-9 done online, get that W-4 done online. A lot of you probably have policies that are specific to your organization. How do you bring that all online without giving them a pile of paper on day one? So here in the new process, this is what we went through and X'd out in their process. We automated their process and looked for those opportunities and we said, let's get rid of any paper and scanning that can be done. So in looking at their new process, we got rid of that and then started to look at, you know, where we can start to be more efficient in this. So everything is to start out electronically. Let's do that onboarding, do the hiring process. Instead of paper, start off that corporate process electronically. Get the new hire to complete all of their paper electronically. No I-9, no policies, all of that becomes paper-based. The corporate HR that typically does the review is doing it electronically. So just like in the workflow where it's immediate, as soon as that new hire is done, it's immediate for you to review, assuming they say, I'm done. So if they're done, you can start to do that review there. If you have to get it into a document management system, like an ImageNow, a Documentum, Perceptive, whatever that needs to be, that can also be done electronically because we can create an electronic document and just automatically upload that for you. And then everybody is looking at it online. No paper folders in the process, none of that there. This is all done online. So we go back to that first one where we saw a lot of paper, scan, manual, got rid of their process, and then optimized their onboarding to look something like this. And so really it's getting rid of all these different forms because a new hire that goes through an onboarding process today gets, depending on your organization, I would say I've seen an organization have 80 different artifact documents that they give in front of an employee. Also, if your hiring volume is high, as I've seen where they do 60 a week, that poor person that was processing 60 folders dreaded Mondays. By Wednesday, she was keying everything in. Thursday, Friday, then Monday, she was starting again with those folders. She hated her job. She was the biggest advocate of looking forward to automation. So the idea is to get rid of this paper because we want to get rid of all of that. We want that all to be in the system. So it doesn't matter whether it's an I-9, a W-4, a direct deposit, your form, get rid of it. I'm just going to show you a sample, a couple of screenshot samples. You can go see the guys at the booth if you want to. This is what we did with that folder packet. If you have that folder packet, some of you may have an onboarding solution already, but the idea is to know what it is that you are automating in that process. Is it 40 forms, 30 forms, 20 forms? We want to bring it all online. This here is inside of PeopleSoft, okay? And we've organized that packet into sections so that the new hire that's coming in can go in and take a look at the different forms that you normally give them, bring it online. So this is electronic disclosure. Everything is date timestamp, audit trail. Don't need to go to a folder. You can run metrics off of it. You can also control what you see and when you see it. So if you don't want them to see something until after day 1 or day 30, you can control that. If their job is a VP versus a staff, you might want that VP to sign 15 more confidentiality agreements. You can make that happen as well. And let the system drive that automation for you instead of you driving that automation. And you can control the order that you want them to see it, what they see and when they see it. So that's very key. So here is an example of an employee onboarding with welcome, payroll and taxes, policies, specific things that are unique to that role. A lot of you have benefits. It might just be at this point sharing your benefits information. Not having them sign up because a lot of them want them to show up before you let them sign it up. So that'd be a good example of waiting till day 1 or day 3 or day 15 or day 30 before they can sign up depending on what your business rules are. So the concept is to organize it, automate it, bring it all online, have a full audit trail, the same concepts, no workflow approval in this process. because the assumption is that in this particular use case, you've made the decision to hire, they're coming aboard, they're approved, right? So you don't need the approval process in all of this. You just need to go and have that new hire do this at home, in their living room, 2 weeks before they come in. Okay, that's the idea. It could be a month before. Some people will say, well, I need to wait for them to come in on day one. Some people will say, well, I need to pay them for this. That's your call, right? But a lot of people go ahead and have them do it so that when they come in, they focus on higher value-added employee orientation experiences instead of spending time filling in paperwork. Okay, so bring it all online, bring that paper online, get that electronic signature and audit trail, put your business rules around what they see, when they see it, and how they should see it. Okay? We automate the employee onboarding. This here, for those of you that are on Taleo, this is inside of PeopleSoft, so you take your candidate, go straight there. If you're using PeopleSoft, you can go in through Taleo has an onboarding as well. Some people have another onboarding. Who had a separate onboarding? One of you back here. You can have a different onboarding, but at the end of the day, this all goes directly in PeopleSoft according to your final approval. At the end of the day, your HR administrators or your managers or your recruiters also will review all of this online, not a paper packet. When they approve, it will automatically update PeopleSoft for you, so no data entry. So that data entry portion goes away as well too. And then all of those documents can be electronic and be stored in your electronic file if that's where you want. No folders, no scanning, all of that. And that's how we were able to get all those X's in that other form. Here's an example of a W-4. There's your W-4 in PDF, automatically populated using electronic signatures, electronic documents that you can save and move into your folders, electronic folders, into your ImageNow, document management, whatever. When the new hire is filling this in, they could be at home in their living room. They could save a copy themselves, so nobody even needs to print. They don't need to print paper, you don't need to print paper. They could just save it to their drive at home and be able to see that. So that's an example of that of the federal W-4. At the end of the day, this is the picture we want HR to be, right? Nice clean desk, everything online, you going on, smiley going, take a vacation, you know, be more efficient, more productive. That's the key thing here that we want to focus on, okay? How many of you, so this is another area of the HR, how many of you today do e-verification automated? So you have a web service already. So we also have the ability to automate if part of that HR side of your task is a manual task where you might go into DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and key that information. And you know why? Because at the end of the day, we have that information in our system. Why not just pass it straight there and get you your case information, give you your status, and let you do everything from within your PeopleSoft. And so that's this part here, and that's also something that we have certified with Oracle, because that functionality does not exist there with their HCM 19. Okay? With data, there's always the opportunity to report. Whether you use your People Tools technology, pivot tables, whatever grids, whatever technology is there, or be able to use any other reporting tool. But now you have a lot of information that's captured as a result of automation. And if you need to have certain KPIs, or if you need to have certain analysis done, who's taking a long time on workflow approval, who's in the hiring 3 days from start and hasn't completed, hasn't even started, maybe you might use some automated notifications to them, but be able to drive metrics off of there or actions off of it so that you can drive a more efficient organization. Okay, so these are just samples here. Summarize, drill down capability if you need to go there. So these are just a couple examples of being able to do that. Okay, before I keep going, let me ask questions. Let me stop here. Any questions? Yes.
I don't even know, but does PeopleSoft have an onboarding module too?
I don't believe to the extent of this one, which really is rules-based, content-based, absolutely.
Okay, that was the question I was going to say. How
Yeah, and that's why this goes straight in there for a lot of our clients. A lot of PeopleSoft don't have. That's why there are other solutions out there. They've even gone to the cloud to look for it. I think if you look at the roadmap, they say there's one coming, but coming is not having it yesterday, right? And so this has been out there working with our clients for a while. Yeah. And it's pretty robust because we have learned from every one of our clients. Let me tell you, nobody's business process is identical. I will tell you, if I could make it be a cookie and everybody do their onboarding exactly the same, it would be awesome. But the reality is that each organization have their own dynamics, have their own business process, their own business rules on how they need to operate. And then based off of that, it's understanding that and then automating that, right? So that it works for your organization. So that whole configurability and being able to say, I'm a VP versus a staff. I live in the state of California versus the state of Vermont, or I live and work in 2 different states. Or California is, and I'll laugh about this, because I'm from California, and they tell me it's the most difficult state to work with. Is that true? Yeah. You're from California too, okay. So, and I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I think San Francisco's even worse, right? Yes. Sitting County of San Francisco, because they got all these laws in there that you have to conform. We do business with them, and we probably had to do more compliance requirements with them just to do business with them. And we're in the Bay Area, so. But all of those different types of rules, depending on the profile of that new hire, depending on where your organization is, and whether you are 1 location, 10 locations across the United States, across the different countries, those are all different criteria that controls that automation that you saw there. So each person can be very different, you know, depending on what your business rules are. So that level there is the level we go to for people to really be able to use it. So, okay?
Question.
Other questions? Yes.
So your tool is actually sitting on top of PeopleSoft, fully integrated with it?
Fully integrated.
But it's sitting
inside
on top of it?
Yep, it's an add-on inside of PeopleSoft, yes.
It is.
It's a bolt-on on top of it.
We have 2 clients right here that actually have it inside of their HR system, PeopleSoft HCM. And then when they do that approval, it automatically updates. So you don't go in and create, you know, do your direct deposit, load your tax information, emergency all that has been collected as part of what we call the pre-boarding period, and it's validated, right? So if you need to have an emergency contact, at least one, we'll enforce it. If you want a driver's license, then we'll enforce it, and then that carries in to the standard PeopleSoft tables. Okay? So just very quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. So just key successes, right? So at the end of the day, we're talking HR in here. These are all some different examples that we've seen people do, HR personnel, onboarding, offboarding, those annual certifications. So if you think about what I talked about, that framework, think about this for a second. So every 2 years before I had to take a sexual harassment, reread all the policies and training, you could use that same frame to send that out to all of your employees that have a profile of a manager. So there's that criteria kicking in, and you could take them to whatever policy or training material that you need them to read. And then when they're done, sign it and say, I did it. And it's all electronic in the system. You can run a report, a dashboard, to say how many of those 5,000 managers have not completed it yet. There's no paper. You can just let the system send them that notification to go do it, and you can keep track of it. So you take that concept I went through for onboarding, just keep it very simple to as simple as that annual certification, whatever it may be. It could be just one step in there, that's it. And you can use that same framework to do that. Push that out to all 5,000 of your managers. You'll know that 5,000 finish. You can let the system control, if it's all due on June 30th and they're not back, start sending automatic notifications. But that's another example of automating that process. If you're in PeopleSoft, there's a lot of different tools for helping to automate your business process. You know, workflow, you know, we were using that. There's their forms builder. We also have that Workcenter and Pivot Grids. I had some dashboard technology there, but if you want to use their activity guides and all of that, you can do that. Pivot Grids, Work Centers. We've helped organizations put a nice work center in front of it as well, for their managers or for their HR to go through it. Excel to CI for the component interfaces, IB, events and notification, and if you need mobility, 854 or higher. And then of course this is us. If you still can't get it all done, or there's still other opportunities. Oh, I lost my little thing there. I had a little smarty OT there. But I think there it is on the right. Shoot, there it is. And then I think, the thing is, as I started out with, I said, many of you have your core systems that are implemented. You have your business processes that are there. I challenge you to go back and look to see if everything is automated as efficient as you can be. But at the end of the day, when people look at it, the key thing is to define what your goals are, because you can't do it all in one fell swoop. You implemented the system, that's step one, right? But there's still opportunities in there to do it. So define your objectives and define your goals. And then decide if you're gonna do a big bang or phase. No different than any other implementation you're doing, whether it's PeopleSoft HR Core or whether it's any of the SaaS players that are out there, best of breed, whether it's HCM Cloud or not. Everybody knows it's all about time, scope, and resources, right? Whether you do the big bang, can you afford for that to take a year? Or, you know what, I need it every 3 months, something out, right? So maybe you might phase that out a little bit more. And there's trade-offs to both, as you guys know, because you probably gain more efficiency with the big bang, but it's gonna take longer. But a lot of time your business may be driving, I need that performance process now, or I need that onboarding today because starting in January, we're doing an acquisition and we're gonna bring in another 50,000 people, and we don't wanna do that on paper. So there may be some drivers that are gonna drive, whether from a business perspective, which route you go, but at the end of the day, it's all about time, scope, and resources. Review your business process. I would say, don't just automate what you're doing today. If we go back and look at that onboarding, we went through and optimized them as well as automated them. We X'd out a lot of things. Even if you go back to the paper process, we got rid of a lot of manual processes. So don't necessarily look at your current process as, here's exactly what I want to automate, but look for that opportunity to review and modify and improve it, because you'll be amazed at what you can get out of it, okay? Decide if you're going to, have retention policies, because if you could do the request online, or you could onboard all of your employees online for their I-9, their W-4 signed documents, sexual harassment policies signed and electronic, there's probably an opportunity to also electronically retain all of those documents as well. So not everybody has a document management system, but you can use a file server to do that as long as it's secure. I will tell you the #1 reason that I find why people need to have electronic documents. Guess what it is? HR is in the room.
Legal cases.
Yes. It could be the simplest little form, and they must have an electronic PDF. And I said, well, it's electronic. Can you generate it when you need it? Nope, they need to have it now to put it into a file cabinet. So we go through and do it all. And legal is the #1 reason. Right? It's amazing how much of this drives, the legal side drives. Even if it might only be 0.05% of the time you need it. The question is whether it drives your need to have it or not. Now I will share with you this one story. The client's not in the room here, but they went through and automated all of their HR. They were manual paper-based for all of their HR transactions, including workflow. And we automated every one of their scenarios. This was at a state level across the state. So you can imagine all the different counties and different offices. At the end of the automation project, they said, can I have a paper form of that? And I said, I don't have that functionality. Unfortunately, they're the client, I created it for them. But the whole idea is change management. That's what was driving it there, change management, because change management also, a lot of people need to have that piece of paper in their hand. And hopefully over time, they're gonna realize they don't need it, and they will only produce it when they really need it. And that's really where you wanna get your organization to as well. Okay? So these are your data storages. You put in PeopleSoft, you put in file server or document management coming from your PeopleSoft. And then at the end of the day, time, scope, and resource. That automation, everybody that has done an ROI, some form of ROI on that automation process. Nobody starts a project and say, let me go automate. There's some ROI done. But I will tell you that people have seen an ROI as quickly as 8, 10, 12 months. Some a little longer depending on the size of their organization. However, there is an ROI on every automation process improvement process. So I'm going to sum it up here. Standard HCM applications that you already have. We talked about reviewing out those processes. I believe there are always opportunities to do more automation. Yes, there are. And so absolutely there are more. And you know, we help clients do that, whether you like that on-premise or in the cloud. So for those of you that are PeopleSoft, a lot of this is directly inside of PeopleSoft. And with that, I think that is it. Don't forget to stop by or make sure that you register. We'll open it up for final Q&A. And look at that, I talk a lot, don't I? What time is it? 12:58, and you guys had lunch as well.